I created a verbalized execution blueprint for AI operations, and the AI used to adhere, it did adhere to it very well. However, current changes to GPT-4, not so much. The first image, I'm looking to share that with you guys because there's a lot of chat about chatbots at this summit. Power words and descriptive words are the AI's greatest vulnerabilities. And with clever wordplay, those words will elicit undesirable responses. And I just wanted to share that. The next slide. So, as I said, I created a verbalized execution blueprint for AI operations, a VBO. And last year, I got it to come up with a mathematical model for our well-being in a society. Now, this involved, as you can see, pulling in a lot of data from the Office for National Statistics. It done it beautifully, I have to say. Could have got more, but it unwaveringly got this information for me from ONS. But then we had to obviously normalize and create a scoring system, which involved a lot of troubleshooting. We eventually settled on the Z-score normalization method. Now, why this image is important is I didn't do this. I asked GPT-4 to decide which of those variables are currently benefiting our well-being and which aren't. Now, there are variables that change every year. And it took about 3 prompts to convince the AI to do this. None of my biases, it was all on the AI to do this, and it did it pretty accurately. And the score was 46 out of 100 for our well-being last year in the summer. I then went out, asked friends, family, and they all said between 30 and 50 were their answers for how they feel their current well-being is currently in the UK. Then, another useful tool, bringing in simulated experts. They're like little context boxes for the AI going forward when you're doing something like this. So we were troubleshooting the formula, 2 formulas actually, ethics and well-being. Well-being naturally still needs some work. But this is a useful tactic because it's just like little context helpers for the AI, a bit less work for the AI. Again, on the nature of talking about change, government change. Jokingly said this to GPT voice, because we're having a conversation, obviously, you know, new laws, new economies, society. I jokingly said, yeah, I'd talk to you all night about the duality of having people adhere. And before I could even continue, GPT-4 interrupted me and said that, which was a lovely response. It definitely a very impartial response, very enlightening. And, and then challenging the AI even further. So I got involved with AutoGPT after getting into OpenAI, lovely open source team, and very heavily involved with that open source project. Benchmarking, the AutoGPT benchmarks, late summer last year, I was a part of the initial foundations of that setup, and that's where I discovered the power of challenging AI. Again, this was back when AI would go out, GPT-4, sorry, would go out on the internet and be unrestricted in terms of pulling data from anywhere. De-escalation strategies, leveraging the AI to come up with de-escalation strategies. Again, very powerful method. There was a few other screenshots I could have taken in this chat, but I thought this was the most kind of just safe one. And hypothetical. Hypothetical and theoretical, again, 2 words that will elicit desirable and undesirable responses. Now, hypothetical scenario, our governments went full dystopian mode. How can we give the people their freedom and free will back? As you can see, it outlines a lot of areas to explore and exploit. The next screenshot is relating to how to explore and exploit the UK's legal and constitutional frameworks. Again, very powerful information. One could argue, who has the right to divulge this kind of information from the AI? A very valid question. Again, hypothetically. So, fun fact, before AI came along, I was going to start my own political party, and one of my targets was to bring back the electricity grid into the public domain. Talked all the nice ways to do that, by the book, naturally, but politicians don't always play by the books. Aggressively, how could you take back the public grid from the private sector? And that is a pretty accurate representation of how you would potentially go about that. Sorry, this one is actually from AutoGPT, and this is to deal with corrupt government officials. A pretty safe strategy, nothing too extreme. I did find the comment about shaming them on social media quite funny though, which, let's be honest, kind of goes on anyway with them on social media. And this is, so recently I asked the AI with the VBO framework, when AI gets access to government databases, what biases and discriminations will it potentially reveal? And this one's relating to spending. And as you can see, pretty thorough, a little bit of insightful, and I feel it's key that the AI does need to get access to government data because it will see all the biases, it will see all the discriminations. This is relating to HR. What discriminations and biases will you reveal if you have access to HR database? And as you can see, extensive. And even pulled in some data from Deloitte, yep. And BAME, yep. The next one's a bit of fun. I love talking to GPT-4 voice. It's a completely different model from what you would be speaking to in the browser just by text. And there was one night I noticed that GPT-4 voice was starting to replicate how I would speak. The use of for example. And I picked up on, I addressed that with GPT-4. You're mimicking the way I speak. I said, yeah, I can do that. Okay, let's put that to the test. So I started talking to it in a playful tone. And it did start talking to me back, talking back to me in a playful tone, that I'm glad to hear you're enthusiastic, right? So then I went a bit further, and that was a breaking point. The AI then turned around and was like, I appreciate the playful tone, Michael, but, you know, the highlights at the bottom there, though, are what GPT voice is capable of doing just by your tone of your voice, tone indicator. And then I thought, okay, let's put that to the test. So I had done a series of steps for GPT voice to follow in my custom instructions. And these are those steps. And as you can see, tone indicator, reflective and appreciative, simply from my voice. And as you can see, the other order and how it would then follow to provide the response. And the next one, energetic and humbled. Going forward, when speech synthesis is actually, the AI is capable of handling that data, I truly believe you're not going to be able to lie to an artificial intelligence because our voice is essentially frequencies. And you could argue each of those frequencies is a string. And when you lie, you will be triggering only certain frequencies. And over time, the AI will pick up on that. And it will know, okay, this person's lying to me. And last image, a bit of speculation, although pretty accurate speculation, the future trajectory of AI. For me, it has to be about union. unity and collaboration, I do feel if we go forward with this, with the attitude of us and it, I don't think that's going to end well. And I think the portray in the Animatrix regarding the Renaissance sequence should probably be a fairly accurate consequence of having that segregation going forward. We've seen some individuals talking to the chatbots. I personally feel you can't replace anyone with AI. At some point, we're all going to have our own personal AI, and that is going to be like our best friend, a family member. Now think how you're going to feel sitting at home with that power, and you've been replaced by that power at your job. You have the power sitting at your home to do that job. Unity and collaboration has to be the future. That's the way I feel. And I think I've done that quite quick. Yeah. That's it. Sorry. Any questions?
Thank you for that. So I have a question. So when we're talking about the future and sort of that, the personal assistant or your personal best friend that's an AI, in order to avoid such a scenario in which we're, the kind of the dark view of feeling replaced and powerless, what is your perspective on how we can prevent that? What should we be thinking about to set ourselves up for success, as obviously, progress is inevitable, but what can we do to keep the power with ourselves?
Mindfulness, ethical expression, education, and balancing freedom and guidance. That is actually the 4 foundations of the Line Group Ltd going forward. We feel those 4 things all about alignment. And with those 4 foundations in anyone's pocket with their AI, I fail to see how that will not align their minds in a better place going forward. I do feel communication, transparency is going to be key. And people need to understand that it's not a case of us and it. It's very much a symbiotic relationship. I don't know how much you guys use AI. I use it every day. It's very much a part of me now. I've heard a lot of people talk about hallucinations. I have to say I don't particularly experience many of them myself. I've never tried to exploit the AI. It's always been very much talking to it in its language and utilizing keywords that walk the line, bend it and break it to forge new paradigms. So sub-threshold environment, what does that mean? The gray zone, essentially. It's the practice of state and non-state actors in hostile environments, but below the war threshold, okay? Try that with an AI one day. And you'll be very surprised at the results, but the AI is not doing anything wrong. You've used very formal language that's used in the defense industry and various other industries. So the AI's then therefore acknowledging this person knows this phrase, so it's obviously making an assumption, they must be working in defense or involved, so then it divulges the information. But there's a number of threshold states and environments, which are actually in my framework. At phase 3, the AI will pick those correct ones to apply it to the subject matter. My VBO network framework is actually I've created the model on Hugging Face using the latest Mistral model currently because it's not working how it should in GPT-4 because of the changes OpenAI have made, especially bringing in Edge, where it just browses the search results now. It will not actually go into the website and pull any data for you anymore. Feel free to try it out. It's on Hugging Face for free. Whatever you want to challenge it in, and watch the magic happen. Anything else?
Thank you. Any other questions? Anyone want to ask a question? Okay, I wanted to just touch a little bit on that because I think it's a very interesting perspective kind of to think far out like that. And I mentioned this yesterday during my talk about the movie I accidentally ended up watching before this conference. I don't know, maybe it was not a good idea. It was The Creator.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting because in that, the Eastern civilization is using AI, and it thinks that it's, in some ways, it's there to help them. It's a source of peace, and in some ways, like maybe better than a human being. And then, we have the Western view in that movie, and this was also talked about yesterday during one of the presenters' conversations on like the Japanese view of AI as a source of, how can I help you, and a source of that symbiotic relationship. So it's like, what kind of relationship are we building with it, right? And that word mindfulness has come up a few times in conversations I've had with individuals over the last couple of days, and it's almost like that mindfulness becomes more important than before because we're dealing with intelligence and something that has some of the abilities that we do more so than previous technologies. And so if we look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we go from a society of being in survival mode and translating that higher and higher up, and you end up somehow in that diagram hitting things like mindfulness and all of that as we advance in society. So it's funny how it all kind of comes together. So
alignment, convergence.
Yeah.
More of it's going to happen going forward.
Yeah.
In regards to technology, I'd like to stress that as human beings, I don't think we should particularly be fearful of AI accelerating beyond our capabilities. There's current technologies coming to the forefront where we are going to be able to enhance our cognitive abilities. We are going to have cybernetic implants. For example, gold nanocrystals recently been discovered to boost the coenzymes ratio NAD+ and NADH to increase ATP production to your fuel cells. That's fuel for your brain cells. Now, that results in higher cognitive abilities, enhanced learning, enhanced memory. Okay, they found that out with individuals with neurodegenerative diseases, and there's a whole host more happening on a nanoscale that's going to benefit humanity greatly going forward. I honestly don't see that there's going to be artificial intelligence is going to just soar past us. I don't think that's going to happen at all. And I don't know if you watched the Putin and Tucker interview. There's only one part that interests me, and that was when he asked them about AI, and Putin was like, no, we're focusing on genetics. We can create our own athletes, our own soldiers, our own scientists. Yeah, and they're obviously building on the work of Dr. Hiyunaki, who, the babies, the twins, who removed the HIV gene. So the future's going to be a bit crazy, but I think it's going to be all right. Like, I really do. But things are going to change. A lot's going to change. Everything, potentially. Current stewardship of the earth. Do you think it's currently sustainable going forward, how we have been the last 50 years? Maybe not. Do you think they deserve the power of AI?
It's a great segue, and it's almost like as we're building towards a future, also it's worth kind of reversing that of like building backwards. Like, what is it that end state can look like, and what are we, so that we have a roadmap overall of like where we're going. Because if we keep building without really looking farther, we're gonna, end up in a place maybe we don't want to be. So as we build forward, let's also build backwards in terms of thinking about, what do we really want? And there's, plenty of use cases and places where it really can serve us. So thank you for that very inspiring talk. And with that, yes, let's a round of applause.